welcome everyone. I am so excited that you're here. As we know, boosting our immune systems is very important right now. May or may not even be a survival thing at this moment. So it's very important that we keep stress levels down as much as possible, that we are ready to fight diseases, that we think about our fitness and we think about our overall health. Me personally, I haven't always thought about my health. I lost 75 pounds thanks to some of the people here, Liz and Fred, who helped me with my fitness. And then the diet changes I made that helped me kick allergies, where I used to spend a month a year in bed because I couldn't do anything with my sinus infections. I take 10 days of antibiotics. Those wouldn't work. They do another set. And sometimes it'd be 20, 30 days on a sinus infection. And I haven't had an antibiotic in 7 years because I started eating more whole foods. I still eat meat. I didn't do anything crazy. And I'm going to show you some of those foods a little bit later. But I want to tell you more about these other wonderful people that are here and that mean so much to me. Betty Lochner is so incredible. She does definitely help me keep my stress levels down and teaches better communication for how you deal with practically anyone, from your mother to the person you're dating, to your husband, your wife, your partner, to your dog. Just kidding, Woof Woof always communicates well. But she was the executive director of the College Savings Plan Network. So she dealt with state treasurers all across the country, plus her own state bureaucracy, and managed to stay sane. So yay, Betty, for that. And we have so much to learn from her. And Liz and Fred, Liz was the first bar teacher in the entire country. They invented a workout, Core Fusion, that is in every Hyatt or a lot of Hyatts in the world, and a bunch here, sold hundreds of thousands of DVDs. And what's really amazing about it is they focus on body awareness. When I had car accidents, I could still do it because they give such good cueing that I always was aware of what my body was doing. Right now, when we're home without instructors, we need that. And they have a Zoom course through corebarfit.com that people can use now. They're doing it 6 days a week, and it's by donation. So even at this time, it can be affordable. So I want to hand it over to Betty first. I'll talk in between, and then we'll get to the wonderful Liz and Fred when Betty's done, and she's going to give you some great stress reduction tips.
Well, thank you, Reyna, and hello, everybody. I am so happy to be here. As Reyna said, I am formerly worked for the state of Washington. I now own my own business called Cornerstone Coaching and Training, where I work a lot with women, but I also work with men on improving their communication skills and the skills they need to be better leaders and bosses at work and at home. And so with that comes a lot of skill building around being a better communicator and how that helps your stress level. So I wanted to start by first sharing, because of the theme of wellness and exercising and nutrition, the kind of the equivalent of that in the communication world is really having a positive energy mindset. And really what a positive energy mindset is, at looking at the world from a positive lens, thinking of what your values are, what you value most, whether it's family, community, beauty, generosity, whatever your core values are, know what those are, and then it helps you make decisions when you put those values first. So if you have something that you're doing and you go back to what do I do about this? What are your values? And that gives you a perspective of not having to go through the stress of thinking the pros, the cons, the whys. If you have kind of this quick check with yourself that's based on just knowing yourself and the self-awareness that goes with that. So it takes energy to be emotionally present. We all know that. So if you're understanding and you're what others are feeling, thinking, and you're being compassionate, gracious, generous, connecting, and showing up, that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about positive energy mindset. Show up in a way for others that share who you are and who you want to be. even if you don't feel like it, you know who you are. So you might wake up in the morning and say, I don't want to see anybody today. I feel grumpy. But then you get on a call and you go, okay, I'm bringing who I really am forward because that is my positive energy mindset. It's very similar to thinking about a growth mindset where you think if you look at things as a positive instead of a fixed, you know, I haven't been able to do this yet would be the growth mindset instead of the I can't do this is the fixed mindset. The yet part is the growth and the energy mindset. So when you start looking at your life through the lens of a positive energy mindset, it reduces the stress and the thinking time and the worrying time because you're talking about your values and you're placing everything around who you are and what you believe in. If you focus your energy on what you value most, you're going to make decisions based on your values. And that's a huge stress reducer. Decision making, and we make a million of them every day, is one of the biggest stressors that we have. And right now, there are countless new decisions that we're making every day. Self-awareness is really being aware of what your strengths are and focusing on them. So don't focus on what you can't do very well or what you can't do very well yet, but focus on what your strengths are and really work to and communicate to your strengths. Really, a lot of people make the mistake of always working towards trying to get their weaknesses better. My teaching is all about working to the strengths you already have to make them even stronger. For example, if you have somebody you work with and you've got people that are really positive and people that are your troublemakers, most bosses, for example, and people will work with the troublemakers and try to make them better, right? Well, I believe you should always concentrate on your positive communicators because eventually they're going to be doing the 80% of the work, and the 20%, those negative Nellies, they're going to either go away or they're going to join the pack. So I really encourage people to think of looking at the positive in your life and not being pulled away and focusing on the negative, whether it's people or things or decisions. And that can include doing a 360 check. Self-awareness is a great way to just think about yourself, keep a journal if you can, or ask others that know you well. Check on them, see how you're coming across to ensure that you have balance. And then as far as taking that into the world of communication skills, I wanted to just share my 4 top tips for how to communicate, small things you can do with your communication to help you be even better communicator, which is one of the biggest struggles we all have. And therefore it brings peace and less stress to your life. And those are: listen better. If you're not a good listener, learn how to be a better listener. Focus on the person, not on you, not on responding. Be clear when you're talking and check for understanding. So we make so many assumptions that we assume people understand. We assume people can read their minds. We assume they saw that look we gave them. Be clear and then make sure you're understood. And then one of my favorite is to shovel your communication piles before they become a big mess. So when things happen that need to be dealt with in your workshop, in your relationships, either at home or at work, deal with them. Don't put them off until they become a big stressful mess where you are making choices and being lured into taking a negative approach rather than a positive approach. A positive approach is dealing with things when they come up and dealing them as best you can in that situation, as timely as you can. And the last one, and maybe the most important one, is to practice gratitude. Gratitude is a game changer. If you start and end your day with gratitude, it sets a positive energy tone for your whole day. It will make a huge difference. I happen to have written a gratitude journal called Intentional Gratitude. And if you want more information, you can go on my website. I'm going to put it in the chat box, but I have links to a lot more information about what I just barely introduced because of the time constraints we have here. If you want more information on how that fits in your wellness journey, please let me know. I don't want to take any more time because I know we're saving the best for last.
It's so wonderful to be here. And one of the things that Betty said about starting with a positive attitude, I do this weird thing that before I get on a phone call and I smile. I used to do this with radio interviews, whatever I'm doing, where I know my energy is just going to be extra important. So you start with that. Believe it or not, people can hear smiles through the phone. And when you're starting with that, you're a lot more fun. You're more likely to do humor that you actually should say. So it's just a good way to just think about that ahead of time. Sometimes if I'm doing a difficult email, I will light a candle and I'll get into a good mindset. Sometimes even take a hot bath before a difficult email. So just think about the things that calm you down and allow you to be a little less stressed when you have to deal with a situation, or just when you're stuck in your house for a month like we never thought would happen. So it helps you get through. And of course, if you're healthy, volunteer and help people. We try to do that every day with Stephen Patzer. So very important to get out there as much as you can to do good for the world. And if you can't, there are things you can do too, as far as volunteering, where you can be a phone call for a senior citizen that is just homebound and has no one else. So look at those things in your community, whether you're in Norway, Canada, or Jersey, or New York, or in Washington State, like Betty and some of our viewers. So you really want to think about, like, what can I do during this time? And the miracle about it is that when you think about what you can do and you look for those opportunities, you'll feel just a little more empowered by the situation. And I'm going to give a couple of tips. We're going to switch back and forth, and then I'm going to hand you over to Liz and Fred. When I got rid of my allergies, or was able to kick them, where it wasn't such a difficult part of my life, I worked with an Ayurvedic nutritionist, and I learned some basic tips about, like, whole foods. One of the simple things is don't eat anything that you read a label and you don't recognize stuff as food. There's a lot of chemicals we don't need. We probably don't need Blue One. So look at those things as real. During allergy season, you build up a lot of mucus. It's something to think about right now. So during those times, I give up milk, but still like calcium. So I have the sesame seeds that you can get on Amazon. You get them as low as $10 a bag. You get a quarter cup at a time. And each quarter cup has 28% of your calcium. And if you don't eat red meat, you get 30% of your iron from every serving. And I always grind them up with a mandarin orange. Another thing that I love that helped me a lot is, instead of cocoa, I will have unsweetened cocoa, even with local honey, which is medicinal. So I have 2 teaspoons of this generally, 2 teaspoons of local honey, a twist of salt, and a capful of vanilla extract mixed with a cup of whatever kind of milk you want to use. So I would have goat's milk because it works better with my system. One of the things I always suggest when you are working on your diet is to give up one thing that might irritate you at a time. Don't just think that you should be gluten-free because that's the latest craze, or even vegan. Be vegan if it fits because of humanitarian reasons, but it's not always the best thing for you. So really look at giving up one thing at a time, looking at your balance between protein and carbs. Maybe give up milk for like a week, see what that does for you, and if you feel better. Give up wheat for a week and see if you feel better. And sometimes it's even different kinds of wheat. Like I find I do better with kamut, but I don't do as well with white flour. But nobody should really have white flour all the time. You want some sort of brown flour, kamut, brown rice, and you'd be surprised as you explore different recipes. I like, there's a website I like, Chocolate Covered Katie, who I believe she's vegan, and she has the best recipes for all sorts of things, including avocado mousse, which Liz and Fred have tried, which makes it the perfect transition to start talking to Liz and Fred, who are personally responsible for me when I am at my best, and right now when I need to lose a few pounds with their help. So Liz and Fred, and they're married and work out together on camera. How amazing is that?
Reyna, for having us on.
Yes, and thank you, Betty. Yeah, this all, as you can see, all this intertwines, right, between what all we are doing here. And, you know, as you know, exercise, when we can do the right exercise for yourself, can reduce a lot of the stress and, you know, reduce your cortisol levels. You know, what we do, we've been teaching bar fitness. Fred was actually the first bar fitness male teacher ever.
Yay.
Teaching for almost, my God,
37.
something like that. I lost track, but
We started young, like we were 5.
but
That didn't go over well.
that didn't go over well. You know, what we found was important with movement, and what we love about what we do when I first discovered bar is that it's a balance. Like with anything else, what Betty was saying, what Reyna was saying, you know, mentally we need to balance ourselves, nutritionally we need to balance ourselves, and we need to balance ourselves with the type of movement we do. So very important that whatever program you do, that you have a balance of strength and flexibility, and some cardio as well, but more importantly, strength and flexibility balance will give you the musculature that you need to do anything else in terms of fitness. And it's very important that you listen to your body. Sometimes it's hard, we just go into a flow. Oh yeah, we're just going to some mindless exercise of moving without really feeling, right? It's important to feel what you do when you're in the moment, and that makes it more of a mindful way of moving. So you end up working out in a safer place that you hopefully will then avoid injuries or joint issues. And then you're able to enjoy what you're doing because it feels good, not just physically, but of course, you know, mentally. Move a muscle, change a thought. One of Fred's favorite quotes, move a muscle, change a thought. But to really listen to what your body is feeling. So important, because most of us drop out of exercise or movement because either we get injured or it just doesn't resonate with what we want to do with our bodies. You know, number one, you have to like what you do physically. You want to be excited, even if it's only 10 minutes out of your day to do something that you enjoy doing, even if it's putting on some music and just dancing around like a crazy person for 10 minutes. Hey, it's movement. You're shifting your mind through movement. And, you know, that is what helps to decrease the stress and decrease your cortisol levels.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
My background is in movement. I was a physical education teacher in the public school system back in my start when I graduated from college. And I got to work with kids and understood that the bureaucracy of the public school system, at least where I lived and where I taught, didn't really work in behalf of the students. So, you know, we did things that were competitive with students. They play dodgeball, they play games. And who would win those games in gym class would be the athletes in the school. And who would be the first ones eliminated would be the overweight kid or the uncoordinated kid or the kid who wasn't really liked that much. You would pick teams, and the kids that would be picked last were the ones who always have the stigma. And they're the ones who grow up as adults not liking movement. And you can see why. They weren't groomed to like movement. And so we have to combat that as adults because we know better now. You can read every study you want about health, and it all says that exercise enhances your health one way or another. So what I tell people with that kind of a background who would rather have sat out gym class and not participated because it really wasn't designed correctly is to just start by walking. Just go take a walk, put your headphones on, or if not that, if you like to swim, if you like to bike, if you like to hike, whatever you choose to do, it's got to be a joy. And you got to look forward to it, because if you do it with the joy of movement, it then becomes for you and for all of us a moving meditation. And a moving meditation is when you're out there and you're breathing and you're moving and you're not really in deep thought. You're just allowing yourself to experience the moment. This brings down stress levels, cortisol levels. And this is the holistic part of movement to help your overall well-being, not just from a physical result like Reyna got from losing weight through movement, but a lot of people do movement just to stay sane. And a lot of our students always tell us this. You know, you're the cheapest shrink in town. You come over and take class, and by the time you leave, you're feeling much better than when you came in, because it's not that your worries and problems have gone away. It's just that for that 1 hour that you devote to yourself, you're not thinking about your worries and your problems. And one of my mentors, and I'll leave you with this thought, is Dr. Wayne Dyer. One of his famous quotes is that if you change the way you look at things, then those things will begin to change. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it just takes a little time to divorce from the problem, do something physical, breathe. Then when you circle back to the problem, you're looking at it with a slightly different perspective. And sometimes that's all it takes to relieve you of your worry.
This platform has been godsend for all of us. Number one, to stay in communication with people, see each other. But secondly, it also gives a lot more people the opportunity to exercise in a safe place for themselves. And you may not want to go to the gym or to class, but now you have the opportunity to connect with a live teacher and be comfortable in your own setting. And when you are looking for these classes, make sure that the teacher can really cue properly, working on position and alignment, and you're able to close your eyes, listen to the teacher, and just follow and do what they're saying without even having to look at them, and that they keep you in a safe place through your breathing and the position and alignment.
So happy moving, everybody.
Happy moving.
Make it a part of your life if it isn't already. But all these people, I think, with us are very fit. You're in here learning, and we can always be in better shape. And we ebb and flow with our fitness levels. Sometimes you're on top of it. Sometimes you lose it. The thing is, make it part of your lifestyle and just keep it going.
And keep it in moderation.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to run 20 miles tomorrow.
Right. Don't ever make it a chore. It should be a privilege to exercise, because we all know a lot of people can't move, right? We're blessed with the ability to move. You have a body. That's how you stay youthful, your longevity. You're going to live into your later years with health and well-being, because movement is a part of your life.
I'm going to put woof woof down, because I'm going to show you a couple of things I learned from Liz and Fred that will help in any workout you're doing, or even if you're sitting at your desk, to have better posture, not just flipping your hair behind your ear and not behind your ear, figuring out whether it gets in the way or not. But one thing that I do for better posture, and this helps with your back, it helps with a lot of things, is just simply roll your shoulders back. Rolling your shoulders back puts you in alignment. And you think about those things that just really do it. And it just takes one rolled shoulder back. And when you talk about like posture, the scary part of posture, we all have curves in our back. If anyone tells you to stand up straight, they're really telling you to have bad posture. So what you do instead is you stand up straight, put your shoulders back, which puts you in alignment, and then breathe in all the way with your nose. And then out every last bit of the breath. And you'll actually should feel your stomach touch your spine. And it did so much for me, as far as both when I'm in a bad position. When my mom had back problems, I had her do these simple exercises. I learned them from Pilates. I learned these things from Liz and Fred. They always talk about shoulders over hips, over feet, like really thinking about how you're moving and constantly looking at your alignment. And one of the funny things with Liz and Fred, I've never liked my calves before Liz and Fred. And my calves got smaller because I always walked a lot, because what they do is they incorporate stretch throughout their workouts. And we were having a conversation the other day about Zoom classes. Well, stop scratching on me. So is that when you're doing a Zoom class, you want to be able to hear the cues that the instructors are saying and be able to follow them, because you could be having the time of your life doing a dance class by the cats and injure your hips. I used to say, never trust a yoga instructor that hasn't had a hip injury yet, because then they won't tell you how to do proper alignment. Yoga is one of the easiest ways to get injured half the time, because we're free flowing. We're thinking, oh, I'm flexible. I want to get deeper into this movement. Don't think deeper. Think, I want to feel like I'm doing movement. I don't want sharp shooting pain. The second I have it, stop. I ended up with breaking a tailbone on a spin bike, because I listened to the instructor say, go, work through the pain, work through the pain. Don't work through the pain. Stop if you have shooting pain. If you have that sensation that says, oh, I'm working hard, great. But shooting pain, no. and really think about, like, is this instructor cueing? If you're thinking about doing a dance class, Liz was saying Ballet Academy East has really good classes, and they're for levels, and they do good cueing, because you can't always look at your Zoom, and especially if you're looking at the phone, you will want something that, as you listen to it, you understand it. Think about the local gyms. I also belong to Orange Theory, and I watch their workouts online during this time because I know their movements. So really think about what you know. You don't want to be quarantined with an injury. So you're already quarantined in your house. You can get out sometimes, wear a mask. You can get out sometimes. Don't be quarantined in your bed because you injured yourself seriously, and doctor's appointments are harder to get right now. So another reason to stretch and pay attention to what you're doing, and understand you can even have injuries when you're stretching. So you really just want to focus on that. Liz and Fred, is there anything that you want to add to that? Something that you think is like the thing that people most misunderstand when it comes to exercise? Maybe that, like, working harder is better.
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
Most people think working harder is better, but coming back to what I mentioned before is you have to really, working out is a mind-body connection, right? You really have to listen to what you're feeling and keep the work in the muscles, right? As opposed to the joints, ligaments, and tendons, or any, nerve radiating pain. That's, you want to stay away from. And when you're doing your Zoom class, it's really important to try to keep your camera at your eye level, so you can see in your right alignment what the teacher is telling you what to do.
It's a matter of really being single-minded.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear this cliche about listen to your body, we can always say, but what does that really mean? It means block everything else that you're thinking about and pay attention to what you're feeling, because you really can't feel something physically and think about something cognitively at the same time. You've got to give up the thinking brain, in order to feel something sensationally. The sensation dominates when you exercise. And the more you exercise, the more you start to resonate with sensation. Oh, I remember that feeling. Oh, I know what that feels like. That's just sore because of, it's not an injury. I use my muscles and I feel that sensation that you resonate with. The more you do it, your body starts to become like a vocabulary. You start to really understand and feel. And that's when exercise becomes a joy.
We were all meant to move, right? Human beings, we were hunter and gatherers, right? And we're coming back to that day now of to move. They need circulation, they need blood flow to them. And then once you get the blood flow, you just get more energized, right? And you move, your mind shifts, right? You breathe better, your alignment is better, and you just function at a whole different level, right? A more balanced level, right? You breathe better, you move better, you function better.
All three ways of looking at this wellness connect. And I think that's what we're all trying to say here is, you want to have the positive energy to build the good habits, to exercise and be good to your body, because if you're good to your body, you will build your immune system and you will see so many benefits that once you start doing that, it's hard to go back. I think that's what you were getting at the end, is it becomes kind of a habit, even if it's just like I do a 1 mile walk a day, rain or shine. I try to do more, but I always that's the minimum I do. And it's like, if I don't do that, I miss that, and I miss the feeling that comes with that. So I think it's all interconnected. So
Great.
And I have a question for Betty, and I wanted to get her, see if she could give an example of this. Small piles, getting rid of those small communication piles. I mean, all too often, I think we forget to have an argument or a discussion, and we wait until when we have time. Yeah.
And then most of us are passive aggressive creatures, even though we don't like to think that.
Exactly.
Most of us are vehemently opposed to conflict. And I think especially the boomer generation, maybe even the Gen X, but are definitely raised in a, conflict is bad, let's just avoid it kind of a culture. I think younger generations are learning skills sooner, and I actually think they're doing better at at not falling into that trap. But when I talk about shoveling small piles, I'm talking about when things happen, instead of waiting until it gets worse, deal with it the first time you see it. So if somebody says something that pushes your buttons, and then you wait and you go and you tell your neighbor, I didn't like the way she said that or looked at me. It really irritated me. It made me mad. And the next time you see her, you see it again. And then you just get mad, and all of a sudden they do something little and you blow up at them. Happens in relationships all the time. And so instead of letting that happen, you address it. You go, wait a minute, something felt weird. Did I say something wrong? Did I hurt your feelings? Because I think it goes along with assuming positive intent. If we all assumed positive intent in every conversation we had, we would minimize our conflict, because we wouldn't go off making these weird assumptions and building these big piles that then you need to take a big shovel and scoop, because you've created an argument or a misunderstanding or a grievance at work, or you've fractured a family unit, and it all started very small. It started with one conversation, one hurt message, one bad look. I mean, it can be very simple. And sometimes when you act on it right away, like let's say you're in a meeting and your boss keeps looking at you and you're thinking, what she's saying right to me and she's mad at me. And then you don't go to her and go, wow, it felt like you were talking right at me. Is that true? Do you feel that way? It gets worse. And then all of a sudden you don't like your boss can't figure it out. It gets worse, and it blows up into them doing something that then you file a grievance on. When you could have very easily said, that felt weird. What happened? What just happened? And they may say, not, usually they will say, oh, I was just looking at you because you were a friendly face and I had this hard message to give. That's happened to me before. Or they could say, I was just looking at the back wall. Or they could say, I don't know who I was looking at. Or they could say, yeah, I was looking at you because we need to have a conversation, or something like that. I mean, that can happen too. But a lot of times we assume things that aren't even true. So check out those assumptions right away and don't let them get into big messy piles. So the next time you see each other, that's there, and they may not even know it. My brother, an example I have in life, my brother's son got divorced from a woman who I'd become very good friends with. And when they first got divorced, he was very cold around me, and he said weird things, but never came out and said anything. And so I said, hey, what is the problem? Why are you talking at me like this? And he goes, well, I don't think you should be friends with her still. And, and I wish I would have asked him that question weeks earlier, because it would have avoided a lot of really uncomfortable and bad feelings that then took us some time to repair in our relationship. So it's about being open, being brave, saying what you need to say or doing what you need to do when it happens, instead of waiting for it to get worse.
And I think too, when you do that, is to understand the person, how they communicate, but also is thinking that there is a possibility of a positive answer. It's not that, because you're going to go into it awkward if you think that I'm about to construct a fight.
Misunderstanding, yes. A lot of times it's just a misunderstanding. And you don't know that if you don't check it out right away.
And have a conversation, not a statement. Don't tell someone how they feel. Right. Because that's another good way to accidentally start disagreement, is because you told them something that you thought they said. And it's better to say, I think this is what you were saying. Was I right?
My husband has a habit of saying, I didn't make you feel that way. And it's like, you don't get to tell me how I feel. That hurts. I think a lot of times people do think they get to tell us how we feel.
And the mixing of piles. It's not just like one pile. It's like when you get mad at someone because of something from months ago, or things that were building up because you let a lot of different piles, and then they just start getting mixed until it's a bad chemistry.
It could be. Usually there are a bunch of little piles that just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you got a lot of piles to deal with. But sometimes they can pile on top of each other, and it's just a way of looking at dealing with things sooner rather than later to alleviate the stress of it building into a conflict, is really what it's all about.
And I'm going to do a little bit of a surprise right now for you guys. I'm going to ask you, Betty, first, if you have a question for Fred and Liz from what you heard, if there's anything that you want to learn more about.
I do. I want to know what your website is and where I can join your virtual exercising, because it sounds awesome. I started doing jazzercise online because they're, not doing it in the gym, and I love it. But it made me realize, like you were saying, that this is kind of opening up a whole new way for people that don't want to go out in a class with other people or put on nice clothes. I can wear whatever I want. So I would love to hear more about what you offer and how we find out about that.
Well, you can go to our website, Core Bar Fit. I'll type it in the.
Okay, thank you.
And we have Zoom virtual classes every day except Sunday, right? We're 6 days a week. And basically Fred and I, we team teach, which is a lot of fun. One of us is demoing, the other is queuing. So we really are, precise with the cues and see most of you. And we hope to we feel that these virtual classes will be lasting for a while.
That's great.
And also, when we get back to working order, live classes will be added in. But right now, virtual classes, or you can also just connect with us. We'd love to talk. Rachel got a couple of questions about exercise. We'd love to, just connect with you, and please forward your questions about movement to us.
Liz and Fred the same opportunity. If they had a question for Betty about stress reduction or any of the things that she does, maybe any kind of thing that they've recently would like to communicate better on.
Well, I think Betty, your advice is so logical, and it just makes so much sense. It's like, and you think about, you help me understand how the emotion of a situation sometimes supersedes logic, and you
Yes.
rationally
make
when
it a
you're
lot harder than it needs to be.
Yeah. So what are your tips about controlling emotion? Because I know that myself, I'm Italian. Beyond that, both of my grandparents were Sicilian.
Yeah.
So
And I live with an Italian.
that's hothead.
I have a blog about how to deal with a hothead. That I get asked that question. I get asked that question a lot, and it's really all about doing small things that make big differences. So if you realize about that, sounds like you've got good self-awareness about that, you got genetics around that, then you want to remember that that's who you are. And so what are you going to do about that? Because it, in some cases, like your wife, she may embrace that and thinks it's fun and she understands it. But when you're with somebody you just met and they say something, you probably don't want to pop off or interrupt or whatever it looks like to you. And so you want to have some tools in your toolbox. A really easy, quick one is count to 5 before you speak. I mean, pausing is in my top 10 micro connect tips that I would give for everybody in every situation. And that's before you speak, pause, give yourself a minute to have a head-heart connection. And a lot of times that will just be a quick enough connection to remind you how you want to respond rather than how you were feeling like you're gonna respond. It gives you a minute to respond rather than to react. And so just remember, if you need that tool, just build it in, just like building in exercise. Just like pretty soon it becomes common that when somebody says something, you take a silent 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 pause in your head before you decide to say what you're going to say and whether you're going to say something.
Or even let me think about that.
Or even let me think about it.
Yeah.
Or instead of reacting, your brain's going to say, wait a minute, just don't say anything right now. Or just say, hey, let me think about that. Or let me get back to you. Or, I'm also big on building scripts. And so if you have a common situation you find yourself getting into, that later on you go, dang it, why did I do that again? Or I wish I could have handled that differently. Write yourself a script around how you want to respond next time that type of situation comes up, and memorize that script and use that script. And then you'll develop it over time and it will just become a part of who you are. But if you have something that over and over and over, you seem to slip into this repeated pattern of how you respond and you don't like that response, write down a script. Next time this question comes up, or this feeling comes up, or this behavior comes up, here's what I want to say. Here's the tool I want to use. And then pretty soon it becomes part of your toolbox, and it comes out just like you know what you're doing.
I have a good one. I have a good one that fits that scenario.
Uh-oh.
No, it's like when you have a confrontation on the phone with trying
thought it was
to,
me.
you're trying to give them a message. Like we've had to disinvite some people to our studios in the past, and that's a hard conversation.
It is.
And so you get on the phone and they start to give you the rebuttal about why this is such a bad move. My written response, my go-to was, I'm not calling to have a conversation with you. I'm calling to give you a message.
That's a perfect example. Is like, you know, you don't need to go round and round a debate or round and round a scenario that you don't want to get back on that crazy making circle again. You want to do something different. You want to break that. And so having a script that you don't want to get into a 10-minute debate on somebody that you're just telling them that it's no longer a good fit. You say it and then you become a broken record. If they keep debating you, like you just said, you just say it over again. Pretty soon you wear them out and they'll go away.
Yeah. I think the one thing with the script though is to be careful about like every situation to the other person may feel a little different. So it's somebody that's not someone that you just want to give a message to go away, that you may want to be a little careful with, like just thinking that that script works in every situation that feels the same. A lot of times it may feel the same to you, but it doesn't to the other person. They're trying to get at something. They're trying to learn something about you, from you. And no matter how long you know someone, there's always something new. And it's this weird habit sometimes to say, we've already had this conversation. I don't have to listen to you this time. Mm-hmm. You have to listen to them, because sometimes that 2 minutes of actually paying attention and listening as to why it's different, or at least asking why it's different, is the difference in whether you talk the next 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Yeah, very true.
So I think now let's get into, you said there's some questions, Betty, if you want to.
I was just going to ask Rachel, I can unmute you if you want to have a conversation about this, but you mentioned that you have done a lot of physical therapy for a bulging disc and learning more about low impact fitness to help manage weight without putting strain on the back. And I'm wondering if I will go ahead and unmute you if you have more to say about that, Rachel, but I'm wondering if Fred and if you two want to give any answers to that or respond to that.
Yeah, I was just wondering about like what are some low impact like exercises that I can start, because I went through like 4 months of physical therapy for a bulging disc, and I'm just now at the point where I'm like, it's not as painful anymore. I'm not in pain anymore. Like sometimes it's soreness, but I'm just wanting to get back into maybe starting to do a little bit more physical activity, because I do know, like my doctor had said, well, maybe if you lose a little weight, it's gonna help with your back issues. So what are some low impact things that I can do?
I think most important, coming back from any type of back condition or disc issue, is you want to try to stabilize the core. But number one, especially that deep core stabilizer muscle, transverse abdominis, that's a little technical term there. But one great exercise that I find is safe and you've done any progression is a plank with bent knees on the floor, on your forearms with a fist, and just think pulling in navel to spine. I think Reyna was mentioning it before too, just feeling the support of pulling your abs to your spine and feeling that middle really solid, because once you have your core stabilization, then the body has more support to work from. So you're going to be reaching for something or stretching or doing a brisk walk, right? If you have your core stabilization through simple plank, start with 10 seconds. Maybe you build up to 2 minutes, right? Bent legs, doesn't have to be straight legs. It's all about progression and really feeling the alignment when you're in a plank, right? Ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. The proper alignment with any back issue is so key, besides developing, a strong core in a safe way without doing a lot of pounding and a lot of crunch, repetitive crunch type movements that you end up moving the spine in a precarious way at some point after doing too many of them, which could again, re-injure the area.
Yeah, and I think the advice that you got, Rachel, about dropping weight, I mean, I have no idea if you're overweight, what your weight is, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that if you are overweight, that extra weight does wreak havoc on your joints, not just your back, but your hips, your knees, your ankles. So to get that under control is like really working with a nutritionist to understand what it is. Sometimes it's just the little things.
Like Reyna was saying.
Like we were working with a person who just took Diet Coke out of her diet. No more Diet
She was
Coke.
doing 2 6-packs of diet soda a day.
And everything
Wow.
everything else was organic and healthy and lean.
Finally, I asked her, what are you drinking?
And she thought because it was Diet Coke, it wasn't going to affect her. But we all know it's a fact that Diet Coke puts a lot of weight on you because it
Sodium.
increases your craving for sweet. And so when she stopped that, she dropped weight so quickly. But that, in addition to exercise, but really most of the body shaping is going to come from the diet more than the exercise itself. But power walking is a great thing that you can do that is no impact. Put on really good shoes, walk on a really good level surface, like not on a beach where it's inclined or sloping or rocky paths, but walk on a nice surface and just get out there and do it for as long as you can. That is an amazing way to build cardio strength and to drop weight.
And also when you're walking, Rachel, think about your alignment, right? Your ears over your shoulders, your abdominals into your spine, like you're in a standing plank when you're walking, right? A moving standing plank. Does that make any sense? But that you're aware, because a lot of back issues come out of postural deviations, right? Sitting or traumas also, moving quickly, but when the body is in the correct alignment, it just functions so much more efficiently and naturally, right? We were meant to be properly aligned. So the walking, the plank, and and the nutrition, it's always a combination of those few things. Get started, Rachel. We got the clearness from your doctor. Now, even if it's 5 minutes tomorrow or today, I think you're on the West Coast, right? Just
Right.
your apartment or your house or around the yard, just get moving and do a plank, even if it's 10 seconds.
Okay. Thank you.
If you're unsure about how to do a plank, there are plenty of videos on YouTube.
And I'm going to put
Just look up forearm plank, basic forearm plank, you'll see.
And feel free to connect with us. I'll put a class and just watch, right? Here are cues, what we're talking about. Even if you just try the plank with bent knees in that in our Zoom class, that will help you just get aware of what the body needs to think about when you're in the position.
But most of our exercises, you will be able to get into the position and start. And don't think that you have to compete or compare. It's very personal, Rachel. It's very individual. Everybody in our class, they start from somewhere and they evolve if they're consistent, patient, and work hard, perseverance. With that formula, you will evolve your fitness, but you have to be humble in the beginning and come from a place of wisdom, not ego. That's one of the things that we preach in our trainings, is to work from a place of wisdom. You know that you need to do this. You know that this is good for you. And if you find something that resonates with you, take baby steps, but be consistent. And give up the thought that you have to be something other than who you are. You don't have to be the athlete or the whatever it is you think you need to be. Drop that thought. Just be with what you are. And as Betty said in her opening, gratitude. I'm really grateful that you have an opportunity and that you could move, because a lot of people can't. And it's the worst thing when you lose something that you've taken for granted, the ability to move or whatever. So yeah, motivate yourself.
And be inspired by that. Be inspired by that. I always like to say, inhale inspiration, exhale transformation.
One thing I want to add, because I've worked through a bunch of injuries and I have to make adjustments sometimes, or just even getting out of shape a little bit versus before, is that don't be afraid to stop for a second and readjust your posture, or just say, no matter what the teacher is saying at this moment, even my Zoom, that I'm not ready for that, or I need an adjustment. And what's really nice with Fred and Liz's classes, at the end, they'll answer questions. So if you have a question, I'll tell you a great story about Liz. When I met her interviewing them for a fitness article. My other part of my background that I would normally mention earlier is I'm a health and fitness writer. And so I got to interview them as one of the fittest couples for a national magazine. And even before that, I had emailed Liz when I was way over 200 pounds and wanting to know how to work out after an injury. And she can diagnose the way other people may be able to match pitch to a song when they're singing, of what might be the best exercises for you and the way to do things. And I emailed her, and this is someone that sold hundreds of thousands of DVDs. It's like, why is she going to get back to me so fast? And she got back to me by the next day. So it's also a lesson in we're all more reachable than we think, especially when everyone's sitting around in quarantine. So it's the best chance to reach out to your favorite celebrity, i.e. Liz.
No.
So it is, and Fred, because if I got to do teacher training with them, and the two of them together are hilarious, which is why Italians are always a good thing, as well as other ethnicities and people too. But they're hilarious together when they're joking back and forth and teaching, and it's just such an amazing thing to watch, but even a better thing to experience because they really focus on the injuries. And one of the magic tricks of the workout is we think of the stretch as to not get injured, but it also is what ballerinas do to not get big bulky muscles. So if you want to have a leaner look, like you did with my calves and even my thighs, like especially when I'm in really great shape, that's from that we stretch every few minutes. I've had a lot of workouts where they didn't do that. And I think it's also the mindfulness trick of getting back into going, okay, what are my muscles doing? Where am I at now? But still remember not to overstretch and pay really good attention to cueing, because some of the cueing that they're telling you is to prevent the overstretch as much as it is to prevent that, like, ooh, I'm working out too hard feeling. Thank you, guys. So Betty, are there other questions that we need to get to during this, or should we
No, I didn't see any other specific questions, but if anybody has one, I'll just unmute everybody for a second.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you,
Reyna.
Betty. Thank you, Reyna. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
So-
thank you
so much.
And a closing tip or how to contact you guys is always good. If anyone has a question for me or wants to send some of the diet tips I use, you can just contact me via Facebook. Just direct message me, and it's just my name, Reyna Gobel, REYNA GOBEL. That really is the best way to get a hold of me. I used to say Twitter, but I don't check Twitter quite as often as I used to.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you learn better by book, we've written the Bible on bar. It's called the Bar Fitness Book. It's on Amazon. We can put that in the chat box as well. The Bar Fitness Book. It's got all of our exercises delineated for basic beginner up to more advanced. So every exercise you can try and see how it works and how it feels.
And ask us any questions. And we've left my contact in the chat box. Always reach out. You know, there's always questions when we start moving, and we continue.
Me too. And yes, put the name of your book in the comments. I'm going to put the name of my journal, which is also on Facebook. I mean, not Facebook, Amazon.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Betty, for understanding how Zoom works. The neat thing in the Zoom workouts, too, is that they do flip back and forth between people as long as you want to be on camera, but you actually do have somewhat of an in-person experience. When I moved deeper into Brooklyn, into South Brooklyn, it was always a little different for me. It's like, oh, it takes an hour to get to Manhattan to Liz's workouts. And this is one of the things I was thinking. But the Zoom workouts have allowed me to have that several days a week where I think of it as an appointment, where I wouldn't think of one of the digital workouts that way. So thank you for coming. Thank you for everyone in the audience. Thank you to all the people I know that will see it later. We really appreciate all of you, and especially in this time, there's a lot of things that we can't control, but the one thing that we can control is the health that we go into things with. And be safe, social distance when you have to, wear a mask when you have to, but really take care of your body and take care of each other. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a wonderful rest of your night. Bye.
Bye.